Some betrayals don't shout, they whisper. It started on a Saturday morning. There wasn't anything special about it. No ominous signs. No gut feeling. I was just being a good husband, doing what I always did when Marissa was out for her morning run. Laundry, dishes, catching up on whatever needed attention around the house. That's when I opened the closet. She'd been saying for months she wanted to reorganize it. Too much clutter, she'd tell me. I need to toss half this stuff, but she never did. And frankly, I didn't mind the mess until that day, when I finally decided to surprise her by cleaning it out myself. Old sweaters, shoes she never wore, scarves she hadn't touched in years. I stacked what I could into a donation pile and vacuumed the floor beneath the hanging clothes. That's when I noticed it, the box. It was tucked way in the back, behind a plastic bin of Christmas decorations. A plain cardboard thing, duct taped along the edges, with one clear message scrawled in black marker across the top. Do not open. At first, I laughed. I thought maybe it was something silly, old journals, childhood stuff, or one of those emotional, don't look at my teenage poetry kind of boxes. But something about the handwriting stopped me. It wasn't messy. It wasn't rushed. It was intentional. Block letters. Centered. Like someone had wanted it to be seen and avoided. I stood there a minute, holding it. Then I sat on the floor. Then I opened it. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them. Printed. Not digital. Glossy. Carefully stacked. Not in albums. Not random. Arranged. I pulled the top one out and stared. Marissa. Smiling. Sitting at a cafe I didn't recognize. Wearing a sundress I'd never seen before. Opposite her, a man I'd never met. Older. Confident. His hand rested casually on hers across the table. My stomach turned. I pulled out another photo. Then another. My hands moved faster than my brain could keep up. Beach. Hotel room mirror. A blurry shot in front of what looked like a cabin. A restaurant. A selfie where their heads leaned close together. A shot of them laughing with wine glasses in hand. In all of them, she looked alive. Happy. The kind of joy I hadn't seen on her face in years. And I wasn't in a single one. Then I found it. A photo of our bedroom. Not like our bedroom, our actual bedroom. The sheets we picked out together. The headboard I built myself. And there she was, lying on her side. Hair tousled. Sheets pulled halfway over her. Next to her, the same man from all the other photos. His arm draped across her bare shoulder. And suddenly, that box wasn't just a mistake. It was evidence. A confession, buried in cardboard and duct tape. I didn't realize I was shaking until I tried to put the photo down. My hand wouldn't stop trembling. I looked around the room, expecting something to happen, expecting to wake up. Maybe. But I didn't. This was real. I put everything back exactly as I found it. Every photo. Every slip of paper. I sealed the box and returned it to its hiding spot. Not because I wanted to pretend it never happened, but because I needed time. I needed to think. When Marissa came home an hour later, she was glowing from her run, kissed me on the cheek, told me I was her favorite person on earth. I smiled. I nodded. I said, I love you too. And I hated myself for how easy it was to lie back, because I knew something she didn't. I knew her world was about to change. She just didn't know when. I watched her move through the house that day like nothing had shifted, like I hadn't just touched the truth with both hands, like I wasn't looking at her completely differently. Marissa made lunch, hummed in the kitchen, wiped down the counters like she always did, in circles, clockwise. She even teased me about how clean the closet looked, laughing when I told her I'd finally taken initiative. And all I could think was, you have no idea what I know. I spent the rest of the weekend walking a mental tightrope. On the outside, I was steady. Inside, I was cracking. I kept seeing that photo, our bedroom, my bed, and that man's arm wrapped around her like he belonged there. It played like a scene I couldn't pause. I would blink, and it would burn fresh again behind my eyes. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more. The photos had no dates, no captions. I didn't recognize the man. No names. No clues. If I was going to understand just how deep this went, I couldn't start with accusations. I had to gather everything. I had to be smarter than my rage. Monday morning, she left for work like normal, portfolio in hand. That same leather tote she always slung over her shoulder. I watched her kiss me goodbye. I kissed her back. Again. Once her car pulled out of the driveway, I went straight to the closet. I pulled the box down again, this time with gloves. Yes, gloves. I knew how insane it looked, but I wasn't going to leave anything to chance. No smudged fingerprints. No misplaced photos. I was documenting everything this time. I spread the contents out on our bed, my bed. Ironic as hell, considering. There were 32 photos total. Most of them featured the same man, mid-40s maybe, silver in his hair, expensive smile. He looked like the kind of guy who never had to chase anything. Confident, clean, too polished. The kind of man who held eye contact a beat too long. I hated him on sight. But it was the envelope underneath the photos that made me stop. It was sealed. No writing. Just a plain white envelope. I held it for a second, debating. It could have been anything. Love letters, hotel receipts, or worse, something she wanted to keep from even him. But my gut told me it was written for her. Maybe even by her. I opened it carefully. Inside were 6 folded sheets of lined paper, filled front to back in Marissa's handwriting. It wasn't a letter. It was a journal entry, or multiple, really. Notes she'd written to herself, documenting her feelings like some twisted therapist's exercise. I feel alive with him in a way I don't with Cole. It scares me how easy it is to lie now. I tell myself it's just a phase, just something I need to go through. But part of me knows that's a lie too. I don't know if I can go back to pretending I'm happy when I'm not. That line hit me like a truck. I kept reading, even though every word carved deeper. Sometimes I think Cole suspects something. He's too kind, too patient, and I don't deserve him. But I can't stop. Not yet. I don't even know what I'm trying to get from this. Control? Attention? Maybe I'm just afraid of waking up one day and realizing I've lived the same year over and over again. I sat on the edge of the bed, letter in hand, heart thudding in my chest. There it was. Not just the act of betrayal, but the thought process behind it, the reasons, the justifications, the guilt she buried, and the freedom she felt stealing moments with someone else. She wasn't lost in the dark. She walked into it with her eyes wide open. That night, I didn't sleep. She came home like always, kicked off her shoes, poured a glass of wine, asked if I wanted to watch something on Netflix. I told her I was tired. She didn't push. She never did. She just climbed into bed, pulled the blanket up, and drifted off next to me. And I lay there in the dark, wondering how many nights she'd done that before. How many nights she came home with his touch still fresh on her skin. And how many more I'd let her get away with it. I wasn't the same man by Thursday. That's what betrayal does. It recalibrates you. You don't wake up the same. You don't drive the same. You don't even breathe the same. Everything gets rerouted through this new lens of suspicion, of hard truth, of knowing the person lying next to you has been someone else when you weren't looking. I moved through the house like a ghost. Not clumsy. Not loud. Just unseen. I memorized her routine. I took note of how often she checked her phone, when she smiled at it, when she tilted the screen away from me. I listened for names she didn't mention before. I traced her schedule with a precision I never thought I'd need in my marriage. It didn't take long for patterns to emerge. Monday nights, late meetings, every other Thursday, catching up with Leah, her coworker, who I knew for a fact was on maternity leave and living 2 states away. Saturday mornings, always a run, always alone, always unreachable for at least 90 minutes. I didn't follow her. Not yet. I wasn't ready for what I might see. Instead, I watched from the edges. Listened more than I spoke. Kept notes. Dates. Times. But I needed more. I remembered something that had slipped my mind in all the chaos. A small gray notebook she used to keep in her work tote. A planner, supposedly. She never let it sit around. Never left it out in the open. I figured if she was writing to herself about him, maybe it wasn't just in that envelope. Maybe there was more. That night, after she fell asleep, I went looking. Her tote sat beside the couch, just like always. I opened it carefully, pulling the zipper slow enough not to wake a dog, let alone a woman. There it was. The planner. I took it into the kitchen, flipped on the stove light, soft and dim, and opened the notebook. Inside was a mix of work notes, project outlines, client names. But in between, little scribbles. Initials. One in particular showed up again and again. DS. No full name. Just initials, underlined sometimes. Circled once. In one margin, she had written rescheduled coffee with DS. 3 p.m., same place. Another note. Remind DS about Friday flight. Double check gate. A flight? My chest tightened. If she was booking travel with him, this wasn't just some meaningless fling. This was logistics. Coordination. A second life maintained with the kind of detail most people reserve for their taxes. I snapped photos of the pages, then returned the planner exactly how I found it. Zip. Tucked. Position unchanged. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept spiraling faster and tighter. I started wondering how much of our marriage had been shared, how much had been mirrored from her time with him. That laugh at dinner, that new wine she suddenly loved, the way she wore her hair different this year, was it all about him? The next day, I called in sick to work. I wasn't sick, just done pretending I wasn't bleeding. I searched our shared cloud storage, combed through backed up images from years past. I was looking for anything, any clue, any face. And there, buried in a group photo from a company retreat 2 summers ago, I saw him. Back row, arm around another woman, Marissa standing just 2 people away. His name was in the caption, David Sanderson, DS. My wife had been having an affair with someone I'd met, someone I'd shaken hands with. I remembered him now, charismatic, confident, a little too slick. He laughed at his own jokes, patted my shoulder when we said goodbye. I hated him then, for no reason I could explain. Now I knew. This wasn't a stranger. This was a man who looked me in the eye and lied without blinking. And Marissa? She didn't just let it happen. She built space for it. Which meant the question wasn't if she'd do it again. It was whether she'd ever stopped. I stared at the photo for a long time. David Sanderson. That name rattled something loose in my brain. Moments I had filed under irrelevant now came rushing back with new meaning. I remembered the dinner party Marissa insisted we host for her core team. David was there, charming the room, tossing compliments like candy, sipping red wine like it made him better than everyone. I remembered how Marissa kept looking at him when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Back then, I chalked it up to professional admiration. Now I knew better. That wasn't admiration. It was prelude. Once I had his name, things escalated quickly. Social media made it too easy. David had a private account, but his company's website didn't. There he was, vice president of product strategy, married, 2 kids, lived in a gated suburb just 15 miles from us. That was the gut punch I didn't see coming. He wasn't just a player. He had his own family, a wife who probably kissed him goodbye every morning, same as I did with Marissa, kids who probably looked up to him, and he still found time to play house with my wife. I closed my laptop and walked away before I broke it. I needed to clear my head, think, not act out of anger. I needed a plan, not an explosion. I made coffee, poured it, let it go cold. Then I started writing. I wrote down everything I knew, every clue, every date, every time she claimed to be somewhere else. I compared it with notes from the journal, photos of her planner, timestamps on the photographs from the box. It wasn't a mess anymore. It was a map, a grid of deception. And I was tracing it backward. Thursday evening, she came home like nothing was wrong. I watched her slip her heels off at the door, hum as she wandered into the kitchen. She poured wine, checked her phone. She even offered to cook. I know I've been distracted lately, she said. I want us to reconnect. The word almost made me choke. Reconnect? After everything I knew now, she wanted to reconnect? I played along. I smiled. I asked her about her day. She mentioned a client dinner she had next week, Thursday, downtown, some rooftop venue. I nodded, but in my head, I circled the date. I was going to follow her. I didn't care what it took. If I had to sit across the street in a rental car for hours, I would. I needed to see it, not just in photos, not just in notes. I needed to see them together. I needed to watch it break in real time. That night, I slept in our bed like usual. She curled up next to me like usual. She even kissed my shoulder, whispered goodnight, like usual. But nothing was usual anymore. I stared at the ceiling long after her breathing slowed, and I kept thinking about how much effort it must have taken, how much skill, to live a double life under one roof. She laughed with me, slept beside me, shared meals and holiday plans. And still, she made time to give pieces of herself to someone else. Not once, not in a moment of weakness. Over and over. It wasn't just betrayal. It was orchestration. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called a private investigator. His name was Wyatt, older guy, voice like gravel, straight to the point. I didn't give him the full emotional breakdown, just the facts. The name, the date, the location, what I needed. Discreet surveillance? He asked. You want confirmation? I want documentation, I said. Photos, timeline, faces. You planning to confront her? I'm planning to know everything before I do. He paused. Smart. We made arrangements. Payment. Schedule. And when I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Control. I wasn't going to let this rot eat away at me quietly anymore. I was going to stand in the truth, even if it tore everything down. The plan was in motion. Thursday came quicker than I expected, and with it came an odd calm. It was the kind of stillness you feel just before a storm, when the clouds haven't rolled in yet, but the air knows what's coming. Wyatt was already in position by 4 p.m. He texted me once, just a simple message, got eyes. We'll update. Marissa was getting ready upstairs. I heard the familiar rustle of hangers sliding across the rack, the subtle slam of a dresser drawer. Then her voice, singing softly under her breath. That one caught me off guard. How could she still sing? By 5:20, she came down the stairs in a navy blue dress I'd never seen before. She looked beautiful. No, dangerous. That kind of beauty doesn't glow. It cuts. Sharp. Measured. Intentionally disarming. You look nice, I said, sipping water to hide the sour taste in my mouth. She smiled. Thanks. I don't think I'll be too late. Client dinner? I asked. Yeah. Just drinks and apps. Really? She kissed my cheek. I didn't flinch. Just let it happen. like I was watching someone else's wife leave for someone else's affair. The door clicked shut. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the grain in the wood, trying to decide what would hurt more, confirmation or doubt. Then my phone buzzed. 5:48 p.m. She met him. Tall, graying. Confirmed subject. Restaurant on 5th and Mason. Intimate seating. No one else from work present. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I prepared myself to see it again. I'd studied the photos, her notes, the lies she spun like silk, but reading it live, it hit different. Then came the photos. 6 in total, all time-stamped. Wyatt had a good lens, clear, undeniable. Marissa leaning close to David across the table, her hand on his wrist, him brushing hair from her cheek. The two of them laughing, faces lit by candlelight, like they had the world to themselves. And then one that ended it all, them kissing, full, comfortable, practiced. My hand clenched around the phone. Not rage, just something colder. A final note in a song I didn't want to hear again. That kiss didn't belong to a mistake. It belonged to a routine, something they'd done before, something they never meant to stop. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just saved the photos and stood from the table, my reflection caught in the hallway mirror on the way upstairs. I stared at it. Same face, same house, same man, but something in my eyes had changed. There was no confusion left, no denial. That night, I didn't wait up. She came home around 9:40. I pretended to be asleep. I felt the mattress shift when she crawled in next to me, heard her sigh. Then her hand touched my back, just a brush, like a whisper. I love you, she said into the dark. I didn't move, didn't answer, because the version of me who might have believed that was already gone. The next morning, I was in the garage before sunrise. I needed distance. Not from her, yet, but from the boiling point I was inching toward. I started pulling boxes off the shelves, reorganizing them just to give my hands something to do. That's when I found the old camping gear. Buried beneath it was a journal. Mine. I hadn't seen it in years. I opened it out of instinct, flipping through pages of younger thoughts. Weddings, job changes, the day we bought the house. And there, scrawled in my own handwriting 6 years ago, I trust her with everything, even the things I haven't said out loud. She makes me feel like I'm seen, like I matter. I closed the journal, stared at the floor. Because now, I knew how wrong I'd been. She didn't see me. She used me to hide from herself. And this time, I wasn't going to give her that shelter anymore. Saturday morning felt like any other, which made it worse. Marissa was up early, sipping her tea on the patio, scrolling her phone like the world hadn't shifted under us. She wore one of my old sweatshirts, the one she used to say smelled like comfort. I watched her through the kitchen window, and all I could think was how good she'd become at playing the part. I sat across from her 10 minutes later, mug in hand, acting like this wasn't the last morning we'd ever spend as a real couple. You seem quiet, she said, not looking up. Didn't sleep well. Bad dreams. I hesitated. Something like that. She nodded and returned to her phone. Just like that. No follow-up. No instinct. She was too wrapped in her own routine to sense the fire creeping toward her heels. I spent the rest of the morning prepping. Not shouting. Not plotting anything dramatic. Just preparing. I printed the photos Wyatt had sent. All 6. Each one chosen carefully, enough to speak the truth, but not enough to make the moment spiral out of control. I wasn't here to burn the house down. I was here to open the windows and show her the smoke. That night, after dinner, takeout, her idea, Thai, I waited for her to get settled on the couch. She curled up, blanket over her legs, glass of wine in one hand. We'd done this scene 100 times. Married people do that, rehearse comfort until it becomes muscle memory. But this time, I didn't sit beside her. I stood in front of her and held the manila envelope out like it was a gift she forgot she ordered. She looked at it, then at me. What's that? Open it. Her face changed, subtly. That flicker of calculation behind the eyes. She set the wine down and opened the flap. The first photo stopped her, then the second. By the third, her hand went to her mouth. And when she reached the final one, the kiss, she closed the envelope slowly, her fingers trembling. She didn't look up. She didn't cry. Not yet. Say something, I said, my voice calm but hard. Her lips parted, then closed again. The silence stretched, heavy and thick. How long? I asked. Still nothing. Say something. She looked up at me, and for the first time in a long time, I saw her without the act. No warm expression, no soft spin, just a woman staring into the wreckage she'd caused. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she whispered. I let out a laugh, sharp and bitter. That's what you start with. She swallowed hard. It was complicated. No, I said. Complicated is forgetting your anniversary because of work. This is deliberate, planned, hidden. She opened her mouth again, but I kept going. Do you think I didn't notice the changes? The phone glued to your hand, the fake meetings, the new clothes, The sudden interest in wine you used to hate. Tears welled up now. Real ones, I think. I was lost, Cole. You weren't lost. I snapped. You were choosing. She stood suddenly, almost knocking over the wine. I didn't plan this. It wasn't some long con. I wasn't looking to fall for him. But you did. I cut in. You fell for him, and you stayed in my house. You slept in my bed. You told me you loved me, and still found time to play girlfriend somewhere else. She wiped her eyes, but didn't deny it. I stepped back, the space between us turning cold. I hired someone, I said, to follow you, to confirm what I already knew. That hit her like a slap. You spied on me. You lied to me. She sank onto the couch, her body folding in on itself. I didn't know how to stop. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But every time I looked at you, I felt smaller. Like I wasn't good enough. And with him, I could escape that. So you escaped me, I said. I don't expect you to forgive me. Good, I said, voice flat. Because right now, I can't even look at you without seeing him. She sobbed then, quiet, controlled. The sound of someone who knew she'd burned the last bridge and was finally feeling the heat. I left the room, not because I was done, but because I knew the real choice was still ahead, and I had to make it without her in my ear. The house was quieter than I'd ever heard it. Even during storms or power outages or those long Sunday afternoons when we'd both be reading in different rooms, this silence was different, heavy, pressurized, like the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting to see what I'd do next. I slept in the guest room that night. Slept is generous, really. I laid there with my eyes closed, listening for movement. At one point I heard her pacing. Her footsteps were soft but anxious, looping the floorboards outside the bedroom door like she didn't know how to stop. She didn't knock. She didn't speak, and neither did I. By morning, she'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Gone to stay with my sister for a few days. I know I can't fix this, but I'm not going to run. I'll give you space. Please call if you need anything. M. I stared at the note for a long time, trying to read between lines that were already painfully clear. She wasn't gone because she respected my space. She was gone because, for once, she understood the full scope of what she'd done, and she couldn't sit in it. I didn't call her. I didn't want to hear her voice filtered through guilt. I didn't want apologies that arrived a year too late. I needed time, not for her to change, but for me to figure out if I even wanted her to. In the days that followed, I did something I hadn't done in years. I let myself feel, fully. No distractions, no justifications, no tight smiles to make others feel okay about my unraveling. I sat with it. The betrayal, the questions, the brutal realization that love isn't armor, it's a doorway. And sometimes, the person you let through it becomes the very storm you thought they'd shelter you from. I called Nate, an old friend who always knew how to listen without trying to fix. He answered on the second ring. Hey man, you good? No, I said, but I'm honest. Finally, we talked for nearly an hour. I told him everything about the photos, the planner, the box in the closet. He didn't interrupt much. Just let the dam break. You thinking divorce? He asked eventually. I don't know. Would it help? Depends, I said. Would staying make me weaker? No, he said. Only lying to yourself would. That stuck with me. That night, I took a walk through our neighborhood. The leaves were starting to turn, crunching under my shoes in a way that reminded me how life moves whether you're ready or not. I passed houses with lights on in the windows, people inside laughing, cooking, arguing, living. And I thought, how many of them are carrying secrets too? When I got home, I sat at the kitchen table and pulled out a sheet of paper. Not for her. For me. I made 2 columns. Stay on the left. Go on the right. Understay. I wrote. We had real love once. She's trying, maybe. If there's anything left, it needs a chance. Undergo. I don't trust her anymore. She made choices knowing the cost. Love without trust is just nostalgia. By the end, the go side was longer, but the stay side felt heavier. That's what made it harder. The next morning, I opened my laptop and wrote her an email. Not emotional, not poetic, just true. Marissa, I don't hate you, but I don't know if I can ever love you the same way again. What you did changed me. It changed everything. But I'm not making any decisions based on pain. I need more time. I need more from you than space. If you want to prove that who you are now is someone worth building from, you'll have to show me. No lies. No shortcuts. Just effort. Real effort. You say you're not running. Good. Let's see if you know how to stand still. Cole. I hit send, closed the laptop, and for the first time since I found that box in the closet, I felt like maybe I was becoming someone stronger than the man she broke. She didn't respond to my email right away. A full day passed, then another. The silence wasn't loud. It was calculated. I knew Marissa well enough to understand what she was doing, sitting with my words, weighing them, probably rewriting her replies over and over, trying to decide whether honesty or damage control would serve her better. On the third evening, I got a reply. Short, controlled, too neat to be raw. Cole, you're right. I need to prove I can stand still. Not just stand, but listen. So I will. And I won't fill this with apologies you've already heard or promises I know you don't trust yet. I'll give you actions. That's all I can offer now. M. No. Love. No signature flourish. Just initials. For the first time, I believed she was done pretending. The next day, a package arrived at the house. No return address, but the handwriting was hers. Inside was the gray planner, the one I'd already gone through in secret. This time, though, she'd flagged pages, sticky notes lined the edges with dates and simple captions like "the first lie" and "where I should have told you." It was a roadmap of betrayal, curated like a museum exhibit. She had annotated her own dissent. Part of me wanted to throw it away. Another part read every sticky note like it was a confession written in penance. Some of them stung more than the pictures. One note read, "Told him I had a work trip. I had a hotel room. I cried before I got in the car. Then I went anyway." It wasn't just about cheating anymore. It was about choice, repeated, conscious, premeditated. And she wanted me to know that she knew it. Later that night, she texted, "Would you meet me somewhere? Just to talk. Public place. No expectations. I'll say whatever you need me to say." I didn't reply right away. I sat with it. I watched the message sit there like bait on a hook. But it wasn't bait. Not this time. I agreed. We met at a small park downtown, not far from where we used to walk before we were married. It was quiet, an empty bench under a yellowing maple tree, the sun hanging low like it was watching us decide something permanent. She was already there when I arrived, sitting forward, elbows on her knees. She stood when she saw me but didn't try to hug me. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I didn't come for you," I said. "I came for clarity." She nodded. "You deserve that." We sat, 2 feet apart, the air thick with everything we didn't know how to say first. "I read the planner," I said. "I thought you might." "Why now?" I asked. "Why give it to me? Why open the door after locking it for so long?" She exhaled. "Because I wanted to prove that I'm not going to hide anymore. Not even from the ugliest parts." I looked over at her. "You think honesty now cancels out the lies before?" "No," she said quickly. "Nothing cancels that. I need you to see who I am now, not who I was when I was afraid to be seen." That stopped me, because it sounded like the truth. I watched her as she spoke. No trembling hands, no rehearsed lines. Just a woman stripped of armor, standing in the wreckage she built with open eyes. "I'm not asking for another chance today," she said. "I'm asking for the possibility of one. Someday, if you think I can earn it." I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. Instead, I asked, "Are you willing to keep showing up, even if I don't?" "Yes," she said. "And if I never come back?" She looked at me. "Then I'll know I tried for the right reasons." I stood. She stayed seated, like she understood this wasn't the end of the talk, but it wasn't the beginning of forgiveness either. Before I walked away, I said one last thing. "Marissa, if we ever try again, it won't be to fix the past. It'll be to build something new, from scratch." Her reply was soft. "Then I'll start learning how to pour the foundation." Effort is a quiet thing. It doesn't arrive with flowers or grand speeches. It shows up when no one's looking, when there's no applause, no credit. And that's exactly how Marissa started showing up. She sent updates, not pleas. Screenshots of canceled reservations. A photo of the necklace he gave her dropped in a charity bin. A forwarded email to HR requesting to be removed from any project tied to David Sanderson. She didn't send these to win me back. She sent them like receipts from a tab she never paid, each one folded with a note that said, "I know what I owe." I didn't respond to most of them, but I read every single one. Over the next couple of weeks, we kept a rhythm. Not fast, not romantic. Just real. Conversations by phone. Occasional meetups in public. Coffee shops. Sidewalk benches. Once, the church parking lot where we used to volunteer. No promises. No asking me to come home. Just presence. One day, she brought me a box. No label this time. Inside was everything from the original closet box, the photos, the journal pages, even the envelope. But now, they were burned. Ashes sealed in a glass jar. "This isn't to erase it," she said. "It's to mark that it's over. I don't want to hold pieces of that life anymore." I nodded slowly, unsure how to feel. "You think burning it makes it easier for me?" I asked. "No," she said. "I think it makes it harder for me, and that's how it should be." I kept the jar, not out of sentiment, out of proof that even the most permanent damage can be acknowledged, not hidden. Still, I was hesitant. The cracks were still visible. Some days I'd forget and find myself halfway through texting her a joke, only to stop, remembering what she'd done. Other days, I'd catch myself smiling at a memory before it twisted, because that memory had lived next to the lies. Trust, I learned, isn't a switch. It's scaffolding. And you rebuild it plank by plank. Then came the letter. Left in my mailbox. Handwritten. No envelope. Cole, this is the last time I'll speak without waiting to be spoken to. I need you to know I don't wake up proud. I don't go to sleep feeling whole. But I've stopped hoping you'll forget. And I've started working to be the version of me you can forgive, not because I deserve that chance, but because I believe the woman who broke your heart can become someone worthy of it. I'm not chasing your shadow anymore. I'm learning how to stand in the light again. Whatever you decide, I'll be facing it as the version of me I should have been all along. Marissa. I read it 3 times. And then I cried. Not because it made me want to take her back. Not because it absolved anything. I cried because it felt like the first thing she wrote for me. Not about guilt. Not about shame. But about the weight of truth and the courage to carry it. Later that night, I called her. Can we meet? I asked. Of course. Same cafe as before. Same table. Different tone. This time, when I sat down, she didn't look like a woman waiting for a verdict. She looked like someone who finally understood the cost of rebuilding. I'm not ready, I said, but I'm open. Her eyes didn't well with tears. She didn't gasp or reach for my hand. She just nodded and said, that's more than I hoped for. And in that moment, I realized something. Forgiveness isn't a gift. It's a choice. Not given, not begged for. Earned. And for the first time since the box, since the photos, since the lie that split everything apart, I believe she was ready to start earning it. The thing about healing is, it doesn't look like you think it will. It's not a sunrise moment. It's not some clean, cinematic scene with orchestral music and a tight embrace. Healing is quiet, slower. It sneaks up on you when you're wiping down the kitchen counter and realize you haven't thought about the betrayal in a few hours. When you catch yourself humming in the car. When you look in the mirror and no longer see someone broken, just someone different. That's where I was now. Not whole, but not shattered. Marissa and I met twice a week, always in neutral places. Parks. Libraries. That quiet cafe with the uneven tables. Our conversations were different. Less about what happened. More about who we were now. Not who we used to be, or who we tried to be. Just the people we'd become since the fallout. And slowly, something changed. She stopped waiting for me to forgive her. And I stopped needing her to ask. She shared her therapy notes with me. Real stuff. Unfiltered. She didn't paint herself as a victim. She didn't shrink her responsibility. She talked about fear, about validation, about how easy it was to escape inside someone else's attention when you forget how to love yourself. I listened. I asked questions. And I shared things too, about the anger I carried, about the shame of not seeing it sooner, about how long it took me to realize my pain was not weakness. One afternoon, we sat on a bench beneath a cracked oak tree. The air smelled like rain, but it held off. She turned to me and asked, do you still think about it? The night you found the box. Every day, I said, but it doesn't hit the same anymore. She nodded. Do you think we'll ever be us again? I looked at her. No, I said, but I think we might become something better, if we're brave enough. She blinked fast, lips pressed together, but she didn't cry. That was something I respected about her now. Her pain wasn't performative anymore. She wasn't trying to pull sympathy from me. She just was. We didn't move in together. Not right away. She found a new apartment across town. Smaller. Simple. No decorations from our old life. She called it her reset. I visited once, not to stay, just to sit on her couch and drink coffee while she talked about starting over the right way. We made a rule. No future talk for 6 months. No big decisions. No declarations of love or timelines. Just effort. Consistency. Truth. 6 months came and went. And on a warm spring morning, I invited her to our old house, the one I'd been living in alone since everything fell apart. I made breakfast. The kind she always liked. French toast. Vanilla coffee. Fresh berries in a glass bowl. I didn't do it to impress her. I did it because, for once, it felt like something I wanted to share, not something I was trying to win her back with. She walked in quietly, looked around like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to feel anything. Then she saw the jar. The glass jar of ashes from the photos and letters. Still sitting on the mantel. She walked over and stared at it for a moment. You kept it, she said. I nodded. Not to remember the pain. To remember the truth. She turned to me. I'm not asking to come back today. I know. But if I ever do, it won't be as your wife first. I raised an eyebrow. No. No, she said. It'll be as a woman who finally understands the weight of loving you. I walked to her, slowly. Stood there, a breath away. I'm not the same man you married. She smiled, small and real. I hope not. We didn't kiss. We didn't make promises. We just stood there. 2 people, no longer trying to repair something broken, but building something entirely new. Brick by brick. Truth by truth. Together. Maybe. Someday. But for now, just honest.